This happened a few days ago. I returned to my hometown of Lancaster County to gather material for a book. I thought it would be a simple trip. My mother had passed away, leaving behind her old house. I had forgotten how big it looked, how it loomed over me as I parked my car. The trees were tall and the shadows felt heavier somehow that I set my bags down and stepped inside. It was quiet, too quiet. I spent years researching local legends, but nothing prepared me for the chilling silence of the house. I pushed my unease aside. I was there to dig into my family's history, and I had work to do. That night I crawled into bed hoping to get some sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. I heard whispers in the wind outside. I tried to ignore them, but on the second night, I found myself wandering into the attic. The air felt thick with dust. I stumbled across an old diary stuffed in a trunk. It belonged to my great-aunt. Curious, I opened it. The first few pages were mundane. Then things took a dark turn. I read about 4 sisters. They had vanished one by one in 1837. The words gripped me. The entries turned frantic. Shadows, voices, and fears all mixed together. I felt my pulse quicken with every line. The room chilled, and even though I wanted to stop, I couldn't. Midnight passed, and I finally put the diary down. I told myself to sleep, but a sudden noise jolted me awake. Laughter echoed through the halls. It sounded like children playing, but it was late. I froze, heart racing. I thought I was alone. I stepped out of bed and moved toward the hallway. The darkness felt alive. I noticed a flicker of light at the end of the corridor, and I hesitated. The laughter rang out again. It was coming from the attic. I felt a mix of fear and curiosity, and before I knew it, I was climbing the stairs. Each step creaked under my weight. I reached the top and saw the light flicker off. The air was cold. I stood in the silence, looking around. Just as I was about to turn back, I caught a glimpse of movement in the mirror. Something shifted, but there was nothing there when I turned around. I blinked, feeling dizzy. Then I caught another noise. The laughter rang out once more, louder this time. I stumbled backward and tripped on something. I looked down and noticed a trapdoor hidden in the floor. It seemed to beckon me. My heart raced with wild thoughts. The sisters, the diary. I needed to know what lay beneath. Cautiously, I creaked the door open. Darkness stared back at me, almost like a hungry beast waiting to swallow me whole. I knew I was tangled in something dreadful. I felt the weight of their stories closing in, a warning maybe. I whispered to myself, what have I gotten into? I took a deep breath and stared into the blackness below, knowing I couldn't back out now. I took a hesitant step back, my heart racing wildly in my chest. The darkness below felt alive, pulsating with secrets. I peered further into the trapdoor, biting my lip. Finally, with a surge of courage, I leaned in, using the dim flashlight on my phone to illuminate the space beneath. The beam flickered against earth and old timber. I saw something, a glimmer of metal. My heartbeat picked up as I climbed down the ladder that led to the crawl space. Goosebumps rose on my arms as I descended into the stale air, filled with the musty scent of forgotten things as my feet touched the ground. I cautiously approached the spot where the light had caught. It was a locket, tarnished and delicate. My fingers trembled as I picked it up, and I could see faint etchings on its surface. I knew locket designs well. My mother had cherished one that had belonged to my great-aunt. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. A sudden rustle behind me made me jump. My instincts screamed at me to look back, but I fought the urge. What if it was nothing? I took a breath and tried to calm my racing mind. Curiosity gnawed at me. I couldn't ignore the stories from the diary or the laughter that hung in the air. I had to learn their fate. I slipped the locket into my pocket and decided to explore more. I crept forward in the darkness, cautiously scanning the space with the light. Cobwebs brushed against my hand, and I shivered, but I pressed on. Shadowy outlines and dust-covered boxes surrounded me. The walls felt tight, closing in. I turned to the left, where a draft brushed against my face. Looking closely, I noticed a small wooden door set within the wall, something I had never seen before. This door was different. It was slightly ajar, as if inviting me in. My breath caught in my throat. I pushed it open just enough to see inside. It opened into another dark chamber. This one was filled with old furniture draped in white sheets, like ghosts of days gone by. When I saw it, a figure standing at the far side of the room. I blinked, convinced my mind was playing tricks on me. But the figure didn't move. It remained perfectly still, shrouded in shadow. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. The figure shifted slightly, and I felt my stomach drop. I should run. I should turned and fled back up the ladder. But I stood frozen, heart pounding like a drum. Then suddenly the figure vanished. 1 second it was there, and the next it was gone, leaving only a silence that felt heavy and oppressive. My instinct screamed at me to leave, to escape the house and never look back. But I had come for answers, and I knew I couldn't run away now. With shaky breath, I took a step closer to the room, the door creaking ominously behind me. I wanted to find out who or what that figure had been. And if the whispers were any indication, something dark was waiting for me to uncover its truth. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the creeping dread. I stepped into the room, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The edges of the sheets billowed slightly, as if the furniture below was taking a breath of its own. I moved further inside, eyes darting around, searching for any sign of movement. The air felt different in here, thicker, charged. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was intruding, but the locket weighed heavily in my pocket. I had to know more. As I examined the draped furniture, a low creaking sound echoed in the room, startling me. I swung the flashlight toward the source, but nothing was there. I focused again on the sheets, each one a secret waiting to be uncovered. I hesitated, then reached out to pull one away, revealing an old trunk. The wood was weathered, the metal fittings rusted. Curiosity took over. I couldn't resist the urge to investigate. With a raised heartbeat, I knelt beside the trunk. The latch was stiff, but I managed to pry it open. Dust motes swirled in the air as I lifted the lid. Inside, crumpled papers and a small collection of books lay scattered. I sifted through them, feeling a mix of anxious excitement and dread. Then I found it, a leather-bound journal. My fingers tingled as I opened it, pages yellowed and brittle. The handwriting was ornate and faint, but I could still make out some words. The sisters, the laughter binding. I read those words aloud. Something about them struck a chord, but I couldn't grasp why. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me, a soft whispering that seemed to come from nowhere. I froze, my skin prickling. I turned quickly, but there was nothing, just the forgotten furniture and the shadows. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to focus. This was not the time to be scared. As I returned my attention to the journal, a loose page fluttered out, dancing to the floor. I picked it up, revealing a sketch. My breath caught again. It was a drawing of 4 sisters, each marked with a single word underneath their likeness. Joy, sorrow, anger, and fear. Beneath those words, a dark scribble shadowed the last sister's face. I sat back, heart pounding. Who were these sisters? What had they gone through? The atmosphere felt charged, like static before a storm. Then, I heard it again, the whisper, closer this time. It settled over me like a shroud. It was soft, almost melodic. I couldn't make out the words, but it felt urgent. My body tensed, the weight of a presence pressing down on me. I glanced around, searching for the source. That's when I heard a thud, louder this time, just outside the door. I shot to my feet, the journal still in hand. Fear coursed through me. Something was coming. I had to decide, stay and confront whatever was out there, or flee up the ladder and never look back. As I stood frozen between the decision, the whispered voices grew louder, echoing the words I had found. The darkness seemed to open up before me, revealing what I feared most. I was about to bolt for the ladder when the whispers crescendoed into a chorus that filled the room. My heart raced as the chilling sound wrapped around me, urging me to listen, to understand. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and my breath caught in my throat. The darkness beyond the threshold shifted, and I glimpsed a figure. A girl, no more than 11 or 12, stood shrouded in shadow. Her pale skin glowed faintly in the dim light, and her long hair hung like a curtain hiding her face. She didn't step inside. She just stood there, staring. My mind raced. Was this one of the sisters? Was she here to warn me? Or something worse? Help, she whispered, the word a fragile thread in the heavy silence. Help us. What do you mean? I barely managed to whisper back. My voice trembled as fear clutched at my throat. Who are you? She pointed behind me, her finger trembling slightly. I hesitated, eyes darting back to the trunk. The journal was still open, pages flickering slightly, as if coaxed by an unseen hand. Then I heard a soft rustling sound, like pages turning. Please, she urged again, her voice cutting through the hum of whispering shadows. I took a hesitant step toward her and felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. The journal seemed to glow momentarily in the beam of my flashlight, catching my attention again. The sisters, I mumbled, heart pounding. What happened to them? Her eyes widened, filled with a mix of fear and urgency. They're bound by pain. Tension crackled in the air, and I could feel it knotting in my chest. I wanted to reach out, to help her, to free whatever was trapped in this room. But the fear of the unknown stung my heart like ice. My body felt heavy, like I was being pulled toward a dark truth I wasn't prepared to face. What do I have to do? I asked, desperate. Before she could answer, a loud crash came from behind her, shaking loose a few dust particles from the ceiling. She jumped back, her image fading into the shadows of the hallway. I felt the chill of disappointment and dread settle in. Wait, I called out, but the words vanished into the air. The trunk's lid slammed shut like a gunshot, and the whispers surged around me. My pulse raced, instincts screaming at me to flee. But something deeper pulled me toward that journal. I turned back, compelled to uncover whatever truth it held, even as the darkness pressed in. Just then, a new sound pierced through the whispering chaos, a low moan, dragging through the air like a ghostly echo. It didn't come from the girl. Came from within the trunk. Instinctively, I knew that whatever I discovered next might be more than I could handle. My hands shook as I reached for the trunk's latch once more, pushing against the dread that swelled in my chest. This time I wasn't just curious. I was desperate to know the truth. As my fingers brushed the latch, the whispers reached a fever pitch, threatening to drown me in their secrets. I pressed down, breathing heavily, the weight of the past threatening to consume me. Then everything went silent. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The silence felt like a heavy blanket, muffling everything around me. I hesitated for a moment, the eerie stillness wrapping around me, urging me to reconsider. But curiosity was driving me now, more powerful than fear. With a quick flick of my wrist, I unlatched the trunk. The lid creaked open, revealing darkness that loomed like a hidden threat. I shone my flashlight inside, and the beam caught a glimpse of something that made me gasp. There, lying amidst a pile of crumbling papers and dust, was a small wooden box, intricately carved. My heart sank. It looked like something that shouldn't belong here, something precious from a past that was long gone. I lifted the box, feeling a tingle run down my spine. It had a chill to it, as if it had been waiting for me to find it for years. Then I noticed something else. The shadows in the room seemed to shift slightly, as if they were alive, writhing cautiously around me. My instincts screamed for me to shut the trunk and run, but I couldn't. I had to know that I placed the box on the trunk and opened it. Inside were pieces of jewelry, a tarnished locket, a delicate bracelet, and several rings. Each piece seemed to glow with a story of its own. As I lifted the locket, the whispers returned, more frantic this time, urging me to listen closely. Help us, they echoed, the voices of the sisters intertwining with the rattle of the box. Suddenly, the room chilled even more, as if the air thickened with desperation. What do you want from me? I shouted, my voice wavering as I took a step back. I didn't expect an answer, but the locket opened in my hand with a soft click. Inside was a faded picture of 4 young girls, their faces serene yet filled with a haunting sadness. A name scribbled in elegant cursive on the inside cover caught my eye. Isabel. The name sent shivers down my spine. I remembered reading that name in the journal, the youngest sister, the one who had become lost. I felt a strange pull toward the locket, as if it were an anchor to their world. What happened to you? I whispered, feeling the weight of the past pressing down harder. I looked back at the trunk, the open journal still fluttering as if beckoning me to read more. Then, a loud crash echoed through the room, shaking the floorboards and knocking me off balance. The whispering crescendoed, a cacophony of pleading voices flooding my ears. I stumbled backwards, dropping the locket into the trunk just as a shadow darted from the corner of my eye. I turned, dread pooling in my stomach. The girl was back, now closer, her eyes wide and beseeching. "They're coming," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper, etched with fear. My heart raced. "Who?" I asked in a panic. "The sisters you must," but suddenly, darkness enveloped the room as the lights flickered, and I stumbled against the wall. The whispers grew into a deafening wail. In that moment, I realized I had to make a choice. I could run, abandon this entanglement of pain and loss, or I could face whatever awaited me. Just as the lights went out completely, plunging me into total darkness, I chose. Everything went cold. I felt the coldness wrap around me like a shroud. Panic flared inside, threatening to consume me. My breath came out in quick bursts, making the darkness feel even thicker. I strained to listen, but all I could hear were the frantic whispers meshing with the pounding of my heart. "Isabel," I managed to shout into the void, hoping the name might summon the girl. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. I held on to the trunk for support, feeling its familiar, rough texture against my palms. Suddenly, the shadows shifted again. A chill ran through the air, and I sensed the presence of someone or something close by. I swung my flashlight around, desperately seeking reassurance. The beam flickered weakly through the pitch blackness, then settled on an outline in the corner of the room. The girl was standing there, her form blurred as if she were made of mist. "You shouldn't be here," she breathed, her voice trembling. "You don't understand. They need you." "Who needs me?" I asked, bewildered. "What do you want from me?" Her eyes glimmered with an intensity that shot fear straight through me. "You're their only hope. You have to find them. Hurry!" Before I could respond, the darkness intensified, growing heavier, almost suffocating. Then a loud crash echoed again, this time closer, a sound like shattering glass. I jumped, the fear jolting through my veins. "What is happening?" I whispered, fighting to keep my voice steady. "The sisters are trapped. If they don't find peace, they will reach for you," she warned, her form flickering like a candle about to be snuffed out. "You must discover the truth of their story." Just then, the beam from my flashlight seized on something at the far end of the room. It was a door, slightly ajar, barely visible through the sea of dark. Heart racing, I stepped toward it, feeling the girl's presence fade. "Wait," I called out. But she was gone. I was alone again in the quiet chaos. The door beckoned me with a strange allure, and instinct jolted me forward. Each step felt like it brought me closer to something dark and inevitable, a danger I couldn't fully comprehend. As I reached the door, it creaked open wider, revealing a staircase that spiraled downwards into an abyss. The whispers swelled again, sharper, rising from the dark below. "Help us! Help us!" I hesitated. Should I go down? I could turn back and forget all of this. But Isabel's pleading eyes flashed in my mind, urging me to face whatever lay ahead. I took a deep breath, heat rising in my chest. "I want to leave you," I murmured, stepping over the threshold. Just as I began my descent, the door slammed shut behind me, plunging me into darkness with no retreat. Then everything became eerily quiet. When I felt it, a cold breath against my neck. I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. The breath was chilling, a reminder that I was not alone. I spun around, the weak beam from my flashlight flickering in the oppressive darkness. Whoever or whatever was behind me remained hidden, but I could feel its presence pressing in, suffocating. "Who's there?" I croaked. My voice felt small and fragile, barely breaking the silence. No answer. Just the faint rustle of movement that seemed to dance around me. I stepped back, my feet landing on the cold, hard ground of the staircase. The whispers swarmed louder, their urgency crawling beneath my skin. Help us! I took another step down and then another, the sound of my shoes echoing through the spiral. It felt like I was sinking into an abyss, each step drawing me deeper into something I couldn't see. I aimed the light downwards, trying to catch whatever lurked in the corners of the darkness. But the beam barely illuminated the path ahead, revealing nothing but stone walls slick with moisture. Suddenly, a loud crash rang out below, echoed by a gasp from somewhere in the dark. My heart raced. I wasn't alone. Isabel? I called again, hoping against hope. Stay away. A voice shouted back, frantic and desperate. It was unmistakably hers. Jean, her sister, had warned me about spirits trapped in sorrow, and the weight of that warning pressed down my throat. There was no going back now. Focusing on the voice, I hurried down the staircase, a sense of determination gripping me. There was something below, something I needed to confront. As I rounded the corner, the smell of damp earth wafted upward, intensifying. Just as my flashlight flickered again, illuminating a door at the bottom, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of hushed whispers, weaving in and out like a thread through the darkness. I fumbled for the handle and threw the door open. It creaked loudly, the sound echoing throughout the chamber beyond. To my shock, I stood in a small room lined with jars and dusty artifacts. They seemed to hum with energy, shadowy shapes swirling inside each vessel. And in the center of the room stood a cracked mirror, its surface foggy and clouded. But I didn't see my reflection, no. The glass was filled with images that flickered like old film reels. The faces of the sisters, twisted and tormented, gazed back at me. Help us, they pleaded in unison, their voices merging into one. The room felt like it was closing in. I instinctively took a step back, but the door slammed shut behind me with a force that rattled the walls. Panic surged within me, hot and fierce. I was trapped. Where's Isabel? I shouted, voice choked with dread. The mirror pulsed, and suddenly, it was as if I was pulled into its depths. My feet lifted off the ground, and I was drawn forward, the sisters' cries wrapped around me. Then everything went black. I gasped, inhaling stale air. My heart raced in my chest, but the darkness pressed in around me like a heavy blanket. I couldn't remember how long I had been out. I blinked hard, willing my eyes to adjust. What I saw made my skin crawl, that I wasn't in the same room anymore. I was in an empty, dimly lit hallway lined with peeling wallpaper and faded portraits. The air was thick with dust, and a musty smell filled my nostrils. An old chandelier hung above me, dangling precariously, its crystals catching the faint light and casting odd shadows. Instinct told me to run, but fear kept me rooted in place. Where was Isabel? A low whisper tickled my ear. Help! The voice was barely more than a breath, but it was enough to propel me forward. I stumbled down the hallway, my flashlight flickering ominously. With every step, I felt eyes watching me from the portraits' faces of the sisters, staring with hollow expressions. I felt a chill creep down my spine. Isabel! I called again, my voice echoing off the walls. Ahead, I spotted a light spilling from a doorway at the end of the hall. Hope propelled me toward it, the whispers growing frantic. Don't go, they warned, but I couldn't stop. I burst through the door, and the warmth of the light enveloped me. Inside, the room was filled with relics, old furniture draped in white sheets, a large table covered in yellowed maps, and the unmistakable remnants of a life past. In the center, there was an ornate trunk, slightly ajar. The moment I approached, an icy draft swept through the room, slamming the door shut behind me. I jumped back, heart pounding. Isabel? I whispered frantically, scanning the room. My gaze landed on a faded journal resting against the trunk. Without thinking, I reached for it, flipping it open. The pages were filled with elegant script. It detailed the lives of the sisters Jean, Isabel, and two others whose names were barely legible. But then I froze. The last entry was dated October 1837, a day marked with panic and dread. "We can't stay here. The darkness is coming for us," it read. My stomach dropped as I read on. The sisters had been trying to escape something. Something more than just the sorrow that weighed on them. "Help us," came the whisper again, clearer this time. I felt a pull toward the trunk as if it held some answer. Gathering my courage, I knelt and lifted the lid. Inside, instead of clothes or trinkets, were small objects shimmering faintly. They looked like shards of glass, no tiny mirrors. I reached for one, and the moment my fingers brushed its surface, the room spun around me. Visions flashed before my eyes, images of the sisters, their anguish, their disappearances. Then suddenly, everything shifted. The trunk slammed shut with a deafening bang. I stumbled backward, panting. There was no mistaking it now. The whispers were louder, more chaotic. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Then, as the air grew cold once more, I turned around slowly. A shadow moved behind me. I wasn't alone anymore. The shadow loomed larger, and every second felt like an eternity stretched between me and whatever lurked in the dim light. My throat tightened, and I froze, barely daring to breathe. "Who's there?" I managed to choke out, the tremor in my voice betraying my fear. Silence answered me, heavy and suffocating. I took a hesitant step backward, my back pressing against the cool trunk. Was it merely a trick of the light, or was there truly something there? I couldn't just stand there. I had to find Isabel. Where could she be? The whispers echoed in my mind like a broken record. "Help us, help us." I had already come too far to turn back now. I made a decision, and held my flashlight steady, casting its beam into the darkness. The light flickered, momentarily illuminating the features of what I could only describe as a figure. It was a woman, her outline wavering like smoke, clad in a flowing white dress. Her face was obscured, but I could see tears glistening on her cheeks. My heart raced, adrenaline coursing through me. "Isabel?" I whispered, my voice breaking. The figure shifted closer, and the whispers transformed into a chorus of pleas and sorrow. My hands trembled, but I couldn't turn away. "Please, just tell me where she is." Then everything changed. The figure's expression twisted into a grimace of agony, and she pointed down the hallway behind her. A sound like shattering glass reverberated through the air, shaking me to my core. I swung the flashlight towards the noise, its beam illuminating a cracked mirror on the wall, remnants of the same shards I saw inside the trunk. That's it. The realization struck me like a jolt of electricity. The fragments held the key to understanding what had happened. "Were you trapped here too?" I murmured, now more curious than terrified. As if to respond, the figure moved again, dissolving into a flurry of shadows. "You have to help us," echoed her voice, distant yet urgent. My heart pounded as dread settled in. How could I help them when I couldn't even save Isabel? With determination, I stepped hesitantly into the hallway, drawn toward the cracked mirror. Each whisper urged me onward. I traced my fingers across the jagged surface, where images began to swirl violently. I saw flashes of the sisters' laughter that twisted into cries, moments of joy that decayed into despair. Then one image stood out. A vision of Isabel crumpled on the floor of a dimly lit room, clutching another mirror piece tightly in her hand. Panic surged through me. I couldn't waste any more time. I turned to bolt down the hall, but the door slammed shut behind me with a thundering crash. The shadows converged, and I felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing in from all sides. "Help me!" I shouted, the desperation in my voice echoing through the space. I had no idea if anyone could hear me, or if I was truly alone in this nightmare. Then, a chilling breeze swept through the room, and for a split second, I thought I saw something darting past me in the corner of my eye. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the unknown. "I'm coming for you, Isabel." Just then, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. I gripped my flashlight tightly as I prepared to face whatever was coming. This time I wouldn't just run. I would confront whatever force tied the sisters to this forsaken place. The darkness enveloped me as I struggled to catch my breath. Faint flickers of light played in the corners of my vision, but I fought against the urge to panic. I had to find Isabel. I turned my flashlight towards the remnants of the broken mirror, my heart pounding with urgency. Perhaps the secrets that bound the sisters could unlock a way to save them. With each step closer to the mirror, the whispers crescendoed, swirling around me like a deadly cyclone. "Help us," they pleaded, more distinct than before, urgency infused with despair. I reached out, my fingers trembling as they touched the cold, shattered edges of the mirror. The moment I made contact, a jolt of energy surged through me. Visions bloomed like wildflowers in spring, flashes of laughter, shimmers of joy between the sisters, all cut short by waves of darkness that swept them away. I needed to do something. "What do you want from me?" I shouted into the chaos. "How can I help you?" As if responding, the darkness pulled back for a second, allowing me to see the faint outline of Isabel, seemingly trapped in the depths of the mirrorless surface. Her expression echoed sheer terror. "You have to find us, connect the mirrors," she whispered, her voice cutting through the heavy air as she clawed at the surface of the glass. Her plea ignited a flicker of hope within me. I pondered the pieces of shattered glass I'd encountered. Each fragment was a memory, a piece of their collective sorrows. I scanned the room, looking for anything I could use to aid in this task. I found a rusted box resting by the wall, covered in a thick layer of dust. With trembling hands, I forced it open. Inside were small, chipped shards that looked like mirrors, their edges dulled by time but still glimmering with that otherworldly sheen. "Isabel," I called, heart pounding. "I found them." The whispers quieted for a split second before surging back, a mysterious warmth enveloping me. I slid my fingers over the shards, feeling the cool surfaces beneath my fingertips like dormant souls waiting for their time to rise. Taking a deep breath, I reached toward the cracked surface of the mirror that housed Isabel. Together, I breathed, placing the shards along its cracked edges. The moment the first piece touched the mirror, a surge of energy rippled through the room. The mirror vibrated, casting light and shadow in an erratic dance. The whispers swirled around me, almost musical now, and I felt a connection forming, a linkage between the shards and the trapped spirits. Suddenly, a rush of wind barreled through the space, lifting my hair and sending papers flying. I stumbled but kept my gaze fixed on the mirror. Isabel's form flickered beside the glass, her expression shifting. A look of desperation and hope mingled in her eyes. "Hold on," she shouted, and I felt the weight of her need push me forward. I placed the last shard against the mirror, and the fragments exploded with brilliant light. The air hummed with energy, rippling like heat off pavement. The shadows began to withdraw, revealing images within the glass, a tapestry of their shared lives. The laughter, the love, and ultimately the sorrow that had bound the sisters for centuries. "Free us," the voices whispered in unison as I felt something shift within the room. With a blinding flash, the entire room erupted, and momentarily, I felt weightless. The shadows clawing at the edges of the space evaporated, but the echo of their whispers lingered in the air, a bittersweet promise of the past, and just like that, the room went still as my vision cleared. I found myself laying on the cold stone floor, the mirror shattered at my feet. I blinked against the dim light, disoriented. The oppressive weight of despair had lifted, but an eerie silence fell over the space. My heart thundered in the stillness. I felt like a thread pulled taut, waiting for the inevitable release. "Isabel?" I called out softly, my voice trembling. For the longest moment there was nothing. The air felt heavy with expectation. I waited, my breath shallow and anxious, and in that silence, I sensed something, the gentle brush of wind against my cheeks, as if the room itself were sighing in relief. Then, a small flutter from the fragments of the broken mirror caught my eyes. I turned to see one piece shimmering in the light, a familiar warmth radiating from its edges. With cautious fingers, I picked it up, and as I did, I felt the air change. Though the sisters were free, their presence lingered, a weave of energy that brushed against my spirit. That I rose to my feet, glancing around the now empty room. The air felt clearer, free from the sullen shadows of grief. I stepped back, breath hitching in my throat. I wouldn't forget them, wouldn't forget Isabel. But as I turned to leave, a coldness whispered across my back, a fleeting sensation that I couldn't shake. I paused at the door, uncertainty gripping me. Are they gone? I wondered aloud, but the only answer was silence. I stepped outside into the fading light of day, the warmth of the sun washing over me. Even though the weight of what happened in that house hung heavy in my chest, a part of me felt unshackled. I made my way back to my car, glancing back at the house one last time. Had I imagined the entire thing? Or was the house just waiting to pull someone else into its shadowy depths? I didn't know for sure, and there were things I might never understand. But I moved forward, hoping the past would remain buried, while still carrying with me the echoes of Isabel and her sisters. A part of me would always wonder if they had truly moved on or if they were merely lurking behind the fabric of reality, waiting for someone else to uncover their stories. And so, I drove away from that house, each mile marking a new beginning. Yet the whispers never quite faded, lingering in the corners of my mind, haunting yet gentle, a reminder of the dark and light intertwined within us all.